So today's date is January 20th, 2023. My name is Kelly Zakovic. I'm representing the City of Savannah Municipal Archives, and today I'm interviewing David Mack Jr. For the Savannah Community Memory Project. We're conducting this interview at the Crusader Club Community Center. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us your full name?
David Mack Jr.
All right, and what neighborhood are you here to tell us about today?
The Coffee Bluff area, the Rosedew area.
Alrighty. And what would you consider to be the geographic boundaries of Coffee Bluff and Rosedew?
Well, normally we consider Coffee Bluff once you come south of Montgomery Crossroads. There's nothing east of us but the river, so we can't go that way. And fate of us is around the Tatenville area. Yeah, and the rest of it we consider Coffee Bluff, White Bluff area.
Okay. Are there any distinctions within those? Coffee Bluff is this?
Well, there weren't any markings back in that days. You know, you just knew what the area that you were in. Because you had Coffee Bluff, White Bluff, Pinpoint, Sandfly, Isle of Hope, Thunderbolt, things of that nature. You just knew the area when you got it. Recently, they have started putting up markers so letting you know what neighborhood you're in.
Do they fit with the historic understanding?
It's a little off, but you know, it'll give you a basic, structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
When were you born?
October 19th, 1943, on Rosedew Road.
Were you born at home?
Back then, all of us were born at home. My parents had 6 kids, and we all were born in the same room in the same bed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So what were your parents' names?
David Mack Sr. and Eloise Coleman Mack.
And how long had they been in White Bluff?
All their lives, they were born and raised here.
Were they born?
Yeah.
And where did their families come from?
They came from St. Catherine Island, where they were enslaved until the Emancipation Proclamation freed them. Yeah.
And then when did they come?
Some came into the Coffee Bluff area. Some went to Sandfly, Pinpoint, Thunderbolt. Then they spread it out. But they came from St. Catherine, where Jacob Warburg Plantation. He had 200 acres and had 10,000 acres and 200 slaves. So when the Emancipation Proclamation came and freed them, they spread out and came to different areas.
Okay, so did they come over in the 19th century then?
It came in, it was 1864.
Oh, so immediately.
Yeah. Well, you know, all of them didn't come.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them wanted security of where they were, but that's normal. Yeah. And when they got here, they didn't have any structures, any place to live, so they camped on the bank of the Cedar Grove River. And they built a little church out of wood, and they worshiped there until they got on their feet and started building in the community.
And is that church the descendant, or is that?
Well, that church right now is called Nicholson Murray Baptist Church.
Okay.
That was the oldest one in the community. And we still have the original structure, an 1870 building on that property, and an 1890 building on that property. So,
Very nice. So you grew up here? Have you lived here your whole life?
yes.
And where did you go to school?
Haven Home Elementary School. All of us of my age range went to Haven Home because there was a heavy segregation during that time. Went to Saul Johnson once you graduated from Haven Home. And the thing so funny about it, that we had to pass 3 high schools to get to where we were going because of segregation. But through it all, it was okay.
And you went to segregated schools in your entire...
Yeah, my entire educational life, yeah.
Where do you live now?
I live in the Georgetown area off 204, yeah.
And when did you move out there?
20 years ago, yeah.
Okay. So how long did you live out here in White Bluff?
In the White Bluff area, I live out here actually 35 years, yeah.
Okay. So who were or are some of the important leaders in White Bluff area?
When I look back on history now, I look at the men in the community. They were craftsmen. We had a community full of craftsmen. Some were bricklayers, cement finishers, painters, carpenters, and these men were the black backbone of the community because as they grew, they brought the community along with them, you know. When they went on their jobs, they took the younger men with them so they could start training them to become craftsmen. And, you know, we had bricklayers like Arthur Pappy Hall, Prince DeLyons, George Hall, David Mack Sr. Yeah, these were bricklayers. And we had cement finishers also, Willie Batiste, Walter Batiste, Lester Trump. We had some expert carpenters, like Calvin Harris was a master carpenter, his brother J.C. Carter. Joe Carter was a cement finisher and a carpenter. So we had Felix Borey Sams, Sr. These were our carpenters, and they were the backbone of the community. You watch them as they grew, and the community grew with them. When they built their homes out here, all the craftsmen pooled their resources together, and you see 15 to 20 people on a Saturday helping them build that house, and maybe another year or two, someone else would build a house, and we all would join forces in too. I myself, I was a little boy, you know, go get that, bring that here. So it was fun, but you didn't realize you were having fun until you get older and reflect on this, you know. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed it, and as they, like I said, as they grew, the community grew. And it was a really nice experience back then to see that. Yeah.
Did they build most of the houses out here?
Yes, they built most of the houses. Now, some of them have been torn down and rebuilt because they had to use basically material that they had on hand, you know. But the ones that are here now, that kept them from being, when they built those houses back then, they were never renters out here. We didn't know what renting was, so. At the end of the day, every room in the household was converted into a bedroom, you know, in order to accommodate the sleeping. But and through it all, everything was really nice. And we didn't know what hard time was, but we went through it, and everything. We went through it with a smile. Mm-hmm.
Do you know the addresses of any of the original houses that are still standing? That's maybe putting you on the spot.
I don't know the addresses, but you could just ride along the road and see some of them, you know. Mm-hmm. And like I said, a lot of them have been modified and rebuilt, you know, on the same property. So, but there should be some structures still standing where you can get some pictures. Yeah.
Tell us more about like the men in the neighborhood and how you were raised and that kind of a thing, if you like.
Well, you know, in the neighborhood, every home had at least 2 or 3 adults in it. You know, a mother, father, a grandmother, a granduncle, some older person was always around to keep things in order. And when the ones that had to work, they would always, and we didn't know what split shift was, but they always had a job, and they would go to that job, you know, religiously. But there was always an adult left behind, and that kind of kept everything in order and kept the kids under control. And that's another thing, I didn't realize that until I grew up, you know. Mm-hmm. Even in a community, say in a 2 or 3 houses area, if the mother or father were going out of 2 houses, those kids could not go anywhere until they get permission from that person in the 3rd house. Mm-hmm. And that made a difference in the way we were brought up. Yeah.
Are there any, say values or anything that came out of that? Or?
Well, they taught us how to respect. And you know, when you respect your elders, and you could not just say elder person name was Walter. You can't say Walter. That's an automatic beating. You said just Walter. You had to address that person or uncle or Mr. or so-and-so. And we had another term that we used out here. It was called him Buh. If you just say Buh Albert, about Bud, that's kind of respecting. Instead of saying Mr. or Uncle, you say Buh. Yeah. How you doing today, Buh Albert? And I said, but you can't walk up and say, how you doing, Albert? Because Albert is going to report that to the mother. And when you get home, you'll be chastised for that. Because that's not the way I operate. And as I walk around the neighborhood now, I don't see that type of respect. You know, not from this neighborhood only, but nationwide. Kids have lost the respect for adults.
Mm-hmm. Do you know where the book came from?
It just automatically came up, I got it from my great-grandmother. She told me what to do, and I did it, and that was it. You didn't question them too much, I did.
Interesting. Were there any like church leaders or other kind of people that were?
You can see in this small neighborhood we have 5 churches, and we don't know why there were 5 churches, but you know that when you look at the layout of Savannah, you can see that there are churches about on every corner. So that comes as a result of conflict. Conflict in one church, and then you say, well, we start our own church. So we have 5 in this community, and the leaders of the churches usually get together and make decisions for the community at large, when need be, And they have what you call a young man grand council. That was an organization that was built of the 5 churches. And the men will come together on that meeting date and discuss the problems in the community and what can they do to rectify it. What families need help in the community, and they would take action towards that. Anything to make life a little better. That was their main objective. Yeah.
Do you know when the Young Men Grand Council was prominent?
Well, I don't know the exact starting date, but it went through my time, and that was I guess it's kind of dispersed around 1960, 61, when we started growing up. We graduated from high school and we kind of spread out, so that type of thing kind of phased out. But I can get you some dates on that, I believe.
Yeah, we love that. Any names we should know?
Yeah, well, had names like Albert Grayson, Robert Williams. And Robert Williams is the donor of this property to the community.
And what about Albert Grayson?
Albert Grayson was the chairman of Nicholson Borough Baptist Church. And we had guys like Elliot Miller from Persimmon Pleasant, Alan Coleman from Munherman, and Herbert Baptiste from Nicholson Borough, and David Mack Sr. from Nicholson Borough.
And that's your father?
Yes. And Philip Mack from Second Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
There's some more names, I just can't think of them all right now. I hope I don't get in trouble by missing any of them.
No one will blame you. So we talked a little bit about it, but where did people who lived out here work? Or what did they do for work?
Well, we had painters, like I said, all of them were craftsmen. They worked for contractors, and then some of them became contractors in their respective fields. And we had some that was fishermen, like Abraham Mack. He was a crabber. He'll go out and catch his crab, and they'll take the crabs over to the crab factory in Pinpoint. A.S. Vaughn, I think is the name of it, and that's where they would sell their catches. And then the ladies would get the catches, and they will sell the catches on the street of Savannah. And the rumor has it that they put the basket of seafood on their heads and just walk down the streets of Savannah and advertise verbally what they had to sell. And they did that when they first came over. They did that for a while, and they started accumulating money, and that's how they bought the property down here at Nicholson Borough, by selling catches. Yeah.
Very nice. So were there any other community resources or groups or organizations that were important out here other than the churches?
Well, the church is the strongest institution in every community. I don't care where you go. If you get in trouble, the first place you're going to look for is the church. So that was the foundation of everything. And we had, within the church itself, we had other organizations like auxiliary groups. We had a community choir here at one time where choir members from all 5 churches would come together and make a community. That didn't last too long, but at least it started and it was of good faith. What's the question again?
Any other organizations out here? Maybe the Crusader.
Well, this like we had
Corps?
the Young Men Grand Council. There was also a women organization too, and they did basically the same thing the men did, but they concentrated more on women needs and family needs. Yeah, and they went forward from that. And once there's been a birth in the community, everybody would know, and everybody would come along and give a hand. The same thing go for a death. Down at Nicholson Borough, we still have the original church bell. And what we would do, if there was a death in the community, there would be a certain ring from that bell, very slow, down, down, down. And if a person in the community was sick, that would send a message to them that, that they have passed. And if the person was expecting a baby, they would ring it, ding, 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 ding. That tell Miss So-and-so had a baby. And they didn't miss it very far, there were very, very few mistakes made in that. So.
That's awesome. When people passed, were they buried in the community?
Yeah, there's a Cedar Grove Cemetery directly behind Mount Hermon Baptist Church. And it's about 2 acres cemetery. That's where everybody in the community is buried. Yeah. We had to kind of put a control device on that because other people were being buried out there and, we weren't aware of it. So we had to kind of fence everything in and, secure the area. Yeah, so.
What were some of the businesses that were out here?
Well, back then, when I came along, we had a couple of people that had confectionaries. Nathan Roberts, he ran a confectionery right at the head of this road right on the corner of Coffee Villa and Coffee Bluff, right down the street. And there was another one that ran by Miss Walls, and that was down 5 miles down the road. And we had a couple of guys doing landscape work. Kit Wiley was a landscaper. And most of the other men out here that didn't have a skill, and didn't have regular jobs, they used what they had. And, landscaping was one of the biggest things, and still one of the biggest things going today. So that was good for us in the area.
What did children growing up out here do for fun?
That's a good question. We just played among each other, but we did not have a central location to meet and play. That's when Mr. Deacon Robert Williams gave this property, and then we started congregating here on the playground and playing together. But before that, we just played in the neighborhood, on the streets, in front of each other's houses. But when this property was donated, it really made a difference in the community. And he lived right across the street here. Yeah.
What year did he donate it? Do you know?
Now, I think this was established in 1954, so it had to be maybe 1950, 51, something in that area. Yeah.
And that was primarily for the children?
In this area, yeah.
All right. What do the adults do for fun out here?
Well, it's another good question, because whatever they did for fun, we weren't allowed to see. But it was never a dull moment, So, that's another way that we were raised too. We didn't get in adult business. If they had a conversation going, you better not say a word. But that's another way we lost that respect again too. But they would give excursions every now and then. They'll have fish fry, seafood dinners, things of that nature, and get together. Nice, clean, fun, Yeah.
We've had some other people talk about some of the reunions. Were there any other community events like that were important or are important now?
Well, no, what we have going now, at one time the churches out here had services one Sunday out of the month. So we had 5 churches. So each church had their own Sunday. If our church was the first Sunday, most of the neighborhood from the other churches would come and worship with us. Then the second Sunday, we'll go to Mount Hermon with the second Sunday, and we'll get together like that. But that kind of kept the community together and know what was going on from there to there. Yeah.
And you guys still do what? Are you part of the Crusaders Club? Are there reunions and the old Bluff reunion? Are those
Yeah, we still have that. It's very important too because right now I really can't tell you who all my relatives are because we're so scattered out now and we don't see each other that often. But when we do, like they had the last Bluff reunion, which brought a lot of people back you haven't seen in 30 and 40 years. But and that was nice, and now they're going to start doing that more often and try to bring the people together and let the young ones know who their relatives really are. Yeah.
Very nice. What were, I think you've mentioned a few, but some of the other surrounding neighborhoods around here?
Well, when they came from St. Catherine Island, some came from Sapelo. When they came here, some came to White Bluff. Coffee Bluff. Some went to Pinpoint, Isle of Hope, Sandfly, and Thunderbolt. And when they would have a reunion every now and then about with the churches in those areas, and we will get together with them and they'll talk about coming from St. Catherine, coming from those islands where they were held slaves. Yeah, there weren't too many left when I came along. They kind of died out. But I did have a great-great-grandmother. She died when I was 14, and she told me about some of the stories on St. Catherine Island and some of the hard times they went through and some of they were taken advantage of, especially the females. Yeah. So when I look back on the stories she told me, I get a little upset, but that's the way it was. Yeah.
And so people did kind of commune with each other, even in different neighborhoods?
Yes,
or you mostly
yes,
kind
they
of
did.
stayed with?
Mm-hmm. They commune with each other. Sometime when they have like church anniversary, they'll invite all the churches here, and we'll congregate over there with them, and vice versa. We'll have a church anniversary here. Most of it was done through churches, Mm-hmm. And as the community began to produce more younger people, they kind of got together more on a name and basis. And all of us went to Haven Home Elementary Junior High School, which is located on Montgomery Crossroad. And that was a kind of central location for the blacks, from White Bluff, Coffee Bluff, Sandfly, Pinpoint, then Tatenville, and the Burris area near Georgetown.
Okay.
That's a community out there, a black community. They had to come all the way to Haven Home because of segregation. So, with us getting together at Haven Home, that kind of kept us in touch. Yeah.
So do you have a favorite memory of being out here in White Bluff, Coffee Bluff?
My favorite memory is when I reflect back on how the older folks did things. And back then we thought it was funny and we thought we didn't understand much of it. But as you get older and become an adult yourself and have some people that depend on you, you started seeing why they did it the way they did. And as a result, that was your training and you didn't even know it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So imitating them on a lot of things were good. Everything wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm. Any specific examples of any of those?
Well,
things?
just like church and church procedures and getting new members ready in the process that you go through. Some of them we had to change, but most of it we did it the way they did it. But some of them, they did the best they could for what they knew. And some of them we had to change and some of them we had to modify. But through it all, some of the things they did. That's why some of us are where we are today because of them. Mm-hmm.
How has the White Bluff area changed over your life?
Oh, man. Okay, let me put this in the right perspective. back when we were coming up, this is now the city of Savannah. And how they slipped this in, I really don't understand to this day. But you know, we didn't have any street lights. You know, everything out here were dirt roads. There was one paved road out here, and that was Rosedale Road. And that was only paved, I guess, in the late 50s. There was no telephones. One of my childhood's memories was that Mr. Arthur Branch lived on White Bluff Road. He was the only one that had a TV. And we used to all congregate on his porch and look through the window at his TV. And then I remember one night we looked at that, a program called A Squeaking Door. This was a horror type sitcom. And I was scared to go home after that. Because, you know, it was dark and we had to go down. Rosedale Road was really dark and there didn't no city lights or anything. You didn't have a home here, a home there, a home here. But now, you can't turn around. One time you could stand in the streets, sit out in the streets for, I guess, minutes. But now you can't even cross the street out here. You have to really be on your P's and Q's at all times. So the area has really, really, really grown. And if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say it has grown over 200%. Yeah.
Do you know about how many people lived out here when you were growing up? Is there a rough number?
I don't have a number on that, but I would like to say maybe, I'd say 150, 200. Yeah. And that's on the high side. Yeah.
Yeah, big change.
That's something we never did know, you know?
50 years from now, what should we know about this area, remember about this area, especially as it is today?
Well, just like we made changes from when they moved here from St. Catherine Island. Some generation is gonna come along and change all this, and now they'll reflect back on what happened here. So this building probably won't be here, it'll probably be modified, and you know, who knows what's gonna happen with the property. But since we are here, you know, our project is to leave information back here so they can reflect on it, and that's what we try to do.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us or read for us or anything?
I think you got everything I had, but I do know that when I leave out here, I'm gonna say, I should have said that, I should have said this.
We'll be here tomorrow.
Okay, well, I'd like to be, see this one as edited.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So are we good?
Be good.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for sharing your memories with us today, and we're grateful for you being here.
Okay.